Biden made this country and these people promises he could not keep. It's Biden's betrayal.
These wars are not about America. This war is about our very long time, centuries-long oppressor trying to thrust us back under their control.
The book is not called Justified, why Russia had to do what they had to do.
Are you done with Russian propaganda?
That's all anyone ever says, is that this is Russian propaganda. But that's just a bunch
Because
of
it
crap.
is. Are you getting money or not?
Oh, give me a break. No one in America cares about Russia at all, lady.
Can you shut up for a second?
Trump's main
Editing on
bluff
these, oh my
is,
God.
I'll make this war much bigger if you mess with me. What if Putin says, yeah, go ahead? Well, then we're in a lot of trouble.
I've never seen you quite this angry.
Piers, I'm angry about hearing misinformation. Stop. You owe us $1 trillion in destruction of our country.
Jesus.
We can stop talking about the risk of World War III. It's already begun. That was a chilling warning of two United States national security experts this week. And the evidence is certainly mounting. Syria, Gaza, Lebanon, Ukraine are all red hot. They're all regional proxy wars with the United States at their apex, whether most voters want it to stay there or not. Our debate has been focused on Joe Biden's disastrous decision to pardon Hunter Biden, his son, and the cover it provides to Trump's own clemencies. But Trump's war strategy will have much bigger consequences, and the world is awaiting his answers. He campaigned and won with a populist anti-war message, but now he's warning that Hamas will have hell to pay if it fails to release the hostages, and he has a cabinet with a bite to match his bark. Ukraine's President Zelensky now says that Ukraine will be prepared to cede territory in exchange for NATO membership, and NATO apparently agrees, but he won't make any decisions until Trump is back in the White House, and Putin may not be interested anyway. Many people think that a rapid retreat may provoke Putin and is the safest way back from the brink.
We've watched from the United States as the Biden administration has driven the U.S. ever closer to a nuclear conflict with Russia, the country that possesses the world's largest nuclear arsenal. It has accelerated ever since, and it's reached its apogee so far in the weeks after Trump's election. He is now the president-elect. In that time, just a few weeks ago, the Biden administration, American military personnel launched missiles into mainland Russia and killed at least a dozen Russian soldiers. So in that time, just a few weeks ago, the Biden administration, American military personnel launched missiles into mainland Russia and killed at least a dozen Russian soldiers.
Wait, excuse me, what? I'm sorry, fuck. I haven't been watching the international news that much. Are we in World War III right now? America shot missiles? American personnel shot missiles into... What is he talking about? Or what is the spin here? Is it that in order to operate these missile platforms, they needed training from U.S. personnel? So now the saying is now they're U.S. people launching missiles into Russia? When did Tucker Carlson become an actual... Wait, what the fuck?
So we are, unbeknownst to most Americans, in a hot war with Russia, an undeclared war, a war you did not vote for and that most Americans don't want, but that is ongoing.
Is he banned from the country yet? Jesus. How mind-fucked does your brain have to be on propaganda that, who's at fault for the current conflict in Ukraine? Is it Russia who invaded Ukraine? No. It's NATO, because other countries joined NATO. Yes. It's the United States for giving money to Ukraine to defend itself. Yes. It's Ukraine for fighting an invading army. Yes. Russia? No. Russia, the people who invaded? No, not Russia. Israel? Maybe. Why not? The Jews. Russia? No. Maybe like the European Union people that sent money to Ukraine to defend itself. Yes. Russia? No. What are we saying? How mind fucked are we that it's everybody's fault except for the army that fucking invaded? How is this possible?
Me to debate all this is the author of Provoked, How Washington Started the New Cold War with Russia and the Catastrophe in Ukraine, Scott Horton, the former Navy SEAL who killed Osama bin Laden, Rob O'Neill, the host of the founder of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, and the Ukrainian streamer and YouTuber, Ukrainian Anna. Welcome to all of you here. Let me start with you, Ukrainian Anna. First time we've had you on Uncensored, so welcome to you. I watched the interview with President Zelensky at the weekend, and I went to Kyiv 4 months after the war began and interviewed him and the First Lady. And he was resolute then that Ukraine would not cede an inch of territory to Vladimir Putin. And that was certainly the mood of all the people. And yet here we are, just over 2 years later, and there's no doubt that he is now countenancing the idea that Ukraine would cede the territory that's been taken by Putin in return for membership of NATO for the rest of Ukraine. What did you think of that interview that he gave?
What I think about it is there are certain realities that we have to contend with as people, and many people in Ukraine are of the opinion that Trump will, when he becomes president, push Ukraine to basically some sort of concession. And our job is now to somehow figure out how do we guarantee our security in the future and how we prevent Russia from attacking us again, which is something that most people think NATO membership is, because Russia is not in the business of attacking NATO countries. It's in the business of attacking Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, countries that are outside of NATO's protection. So yeah, most people in Ukraine obviously don't want to cede anything, because we know what happens in those occupied territories, and so does UN and many other organizations that gave their nod to the acknowledgement that there is a systematic torture, rape, abuse, deportations of Ukrainians, prohibition of Ukrainian language, culture, and all sorts of horrible things. And of course, nobody wants to abandon our people to that sort of fate, but also you have to kind of content with what our allies want and what is their decisions. So I believe in that sense that Zelensky is doing exactly that. He's acknowledging the reality of Trump's presidency and what will happen. So I think we should also, wait and see what exactly Trump will do, because his plan has been discussed, but we don't know really much details so far. So yeah, I wouldn't jump into conclusions right now.
No, I think that's right. And I think that, I mean, I'll bring Scott Horton in here. Scott, the thing about Trump is he is unpredictable. We don't know. I talked to him last week about this. We don't know exactly what Trump's going to do. People keep trying to say this is what he'll definitely do. He'll give Putin everything he wants and so on. I don't think that's going to happen. But in terms of this deal that Zelensky seemed to be putting forward, where Putin would keep the land that he's taken, but that the rest of Ukraine would come under the NATO umbrella, do you think that's something that Putin would even consider as part of a peace settlement?
Oh, I really don't know. I certainly doubt that he's willing to accept anything that would include even rump, what's left of Ukraine joining the NATO alliance. I certainly hope that Trump would not entertain that. That's what this has been largely about, of course, along with the contest over who controls what territory inside the country, is preventing exactly that conclusion. I think it's a real dilemma because the Ukrainians, it's not just that Trump has won an election on repudiating Biden's policy and seeking peace here. It's quite frankly that the Ukrainians are just in no position whatsoever to reverse Russia's gains on the ground. Even the Biden administration admits that now. The Post, the Times, and the Journal all quote military experts saying that that truly is the case. So, in other words, Kiev and D.C. are in a position of weakness. And all Trump really has to threaten is more weapons sales and increased weapon shipments. But Biden already tried that. That didn't make the difference. And so I think what's going to happen is the Russians are going to keep probably all four of those eastern and southern provinces there. Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporozhye, and Kherson, and hopefully will not demand Kharkiv or Odessa. We stop it there. And the Trump administration is going to have to get their messaging straight that this truly is a betrayal, and they admit it, but that it's Biden's betrayal. Biden made this country and these people promises he could not possibly keep. We're going to help you force the Russians all the way out and all of these things. And all they've done is gotten a bunch of people killed, and then they lost anyway. And it's a real tragedy.
It's just like, this is like the Republican meme of like, you sabotage the fuck out of a thing, and then when the thing doesn't work, you blame the thing. Like,
it's not Trump's fault. Trump has to be able to have the political capital in this country to say that, look, it is ugly. But you know what, Piers? He actually, and I don't know how he did this, he got Zalmay Khalilzad, the card-carrying neoconservative Straussian, to sign a deal with the Taliban to get us out of there. And yes, Biden absolutely botched the withdrawal. I could go on for an hour about that. But what the Taliban is, he got Zalmay Khalilzad, the card-carrying neoconservative Straussian, to sign a deal with the Taliban to to get us out of there. And yes, Biden absolutely botched the withdrawal. I could go on for an hour about that. But Trump was willing to say, you know what? We lost. We're not keeping the Taliban out, and we're going to stop trying now. And Biden, it was really the best thing Biden ever did in his life was agree with that, even though he botched the process of the withdrawal.
Why? We surrendered in Afghanistan. I don't know what the big... I just don't know. That's such a weird thing to be like, yeah, it was really congratulations, good job. We did a full-on surrender to the Taliban and completely retreated. Like, good job, Trump. But also we kicked the can down the road on the retreat so that it would happen in the next administration. Like, okay.
And so it's the same kind of thing here. It is a real tragedy what the Biden administration has gotten the country of Ukraine into here.
Check. I mean, every part of me is like, I don't want to give a Russian dictator.
Who? Hold on. Is this guy the weird? So people were saying this is the guy that wanted to make the boys his concubines. Is that this guy? Do you think this guy would come on stream? I just don't know. Do these people just like hate America or? Oh, that's the middle guy? Oh, okay. These guys all tweeted, and then this guy quote tweeted him, "You're not men, you're boys. If there was no social media, you would be my concubines."
Dictator who's illegally, in my view, invaded a sovereign democratic European country that's been independent since the mid-90s. I don't want to give him an inch of that land that he's stolen with his murderous rampage. But there comes in war, I've got a lot of military in my family, there comes in war a cold, hard reality check, as Anna was alluding to earlier, where we are where we are. We can all be idealistic about what we'd like to happen, but the reality is that it is highly unlikely. Now, I think that Ukraine, without a massive...
Hey, Brian, or anybody else listening to me, I know you're all stealing my talking points now, but that's okay, I don't care. Please do this for me. When any of you guys are interviewing people or arguing with people about Russia and Ukraine, or about Israel, Palestine, whatever foreign policy bullshit, okay, and you have these like America bad people, can you just ask the question and force them to answer before you have any substantive conversation or substantive conversation? Please ask them the question. Who would be a better president for the United States if you could vote and you had to vote for one person? Kamala Harris or Vladimir Putin? And make them answer that question. I really want to hear the answer. I think that a lot of these guys would say Putin. I really do. I want to hear the answer to that question. I just want to hear them say that.
Extra support from the likes of America, which is simply not going to come. That it is a case of Putin will probably be able to keep what he's taken. Is that your assessment? And is that right for the world, that we give him this big win, which is effectively how he will portray it?
Yeah, that is my assessment. And so the reality on the ground is that when Trump won, we lost about 20% of Ukraine. Now, there's a good argument to be made that you'd already lost that 20% of Ukraine and you were never going to get it back because of the military realities on the ground. So, this has been a very, very difficult question because the U.S. did push Russia too much. We did push NATO to its borders when we said we wouldn't. I understand all that. But at the end of the day, the Russians invaded. And it's not an anti-war position to start a war. So Putin is definitely guilty. Add on top of that 12,000 civilians killed. Add on top of that 20,000 Ukrainian children kidnapped. But what's the answer? Is the answer to fight for the next 10 years, 20 years? Is the answer to cede ground to Putin? Well, that's also super dangerous. That's why this is an unsolvable riddle, because you can get to peace now by doing what Trump is likely going to do, which is Russia take 20% of it and Ukraine will not join NATO. But the next time Russia thinks about invading a country, they're going to think, well, we went into Georgia and took a chunk. We went into Crimea, took it all, when it was part of Ukraine. We went into Ukraine again, we took 20% of it. It turns out aggression is rewarded, and Netanyahu's watching, and he's going to take a part of Gaza, and China's watching, and they've got the Uyghurs in the detention camps and the re-education camps, and the Russians have the Ukrainian children in the re-education camps. So this is really, really dangerous for the world, no matter how it's resolved.
Yeah, Rob O'Neill, you've been at the sharp end of some of the worst conflicts, wars of the last 25 years. And once again, thank you very much for your extraordinary service, not least in killing bin Laden. What is your overview of where we are here? Trump coming in, obviously...
I've heard this is not true, that this guy claims he kills bin Laden, but his team said that he absolutely was not the guy that shot. I don't know how true or not true it is, but...
Going to change the dynamic. He proved in his first term he's not a warmonger. He thinks war, apart from anything else, is just terrible business, that it costs a fortune, the rewards are very low. The other side of that coin is you let a Russian dictator run into a European country, take what he wants, and just let him have it. What's your view?
Well, unfortunately, we're in a position where it doesn't matter why we got here. We're just here. And
stop letting these people say things like "unfortunately." They love dead Ukrainians and captured Ukrainian children and victorious Russia. They love it. Don't ever let them say. I don't know how they get away with this. It's so sad, and unfortunately, the murderous, disgusting American-backed Ukraine has had to unfortunately suffer losses to the noble and heroic and brave downtrodden Russian army. Like, they love it. Don't let them get away with this bullshit fucking framing. They love this shit. They're obsessed with it. It's so cringe and disgusting.
Cenk was mentioning Georgia and Crimea and invasion of Ukraine. That's all weak leadership on the United States. And unfortunately, when we have a strong United States, we have a more stable world most of the time. I mean, we did invade Iraq, and I disagree with that, even though I went there. But you're going to have to go to a position of negotiation. I mean, we did say we weren't going to push in NATO further east, and we did. Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. We were moving there, and now Ukraine wants.
Why didn't he invade? Oh, well, I guess he did, because Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. I think they joined NATO in was it 2022, or was it? Or it might have been the year earlier, 2021. I think they joined, yeah, because it would have been like a year or two. It would have been like a year or two right before the invasion, right? Wait. Oh, maybe just Estonia joined early. When did Oh. Wait. 2004? What? Well, I thought he just said that. I thought he just said that Russia invaded because. Wait, maybe I misheard him. I'm sorry. I thought he said that Russia invaded Ukraine because Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania joined NATO. Maybe I misheard. Hold on.
Time. I mean, we did invade Iraq, and I disagree with that, even though I went there. But you're going to have to go to a position of negotiation. I mean, we did say we weren't going to push in NATO further east, and we did. Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. We were moving.
Huh. So it took Russia 20 years to invade because of this? That's the huh. Oh, weird. That's so crazy. That was a long.
Moving there, and now Ukraine wants to be a part of NATO, and you know, it's Russia doesn't want that, and you're dealing with big countries, but you're also dealing with big egos. And Vladimir Putin grew up in a part of Russia where part of the fun was chasing rats with sticks, and he found out what it was like to corner a rat, and that's kind of where he is right now. He's been in charge of Russia since the early '90s. Let's be honest.
I think that when the human body evolves, and you dedicate, like your brain can only do so much. And I think that when you do, I am so sorry. I have nothing but the most respect for people that do the grueling training process to become like special operations forces, special forces in the United States of America. But my God, you are some of the dumbest motherfuckers in the world when you are talking about anything having to do with literally anything. I don't know if the U.S. should have a policy where if you are special forces, you have no freedom of speech afterwards, because they shouldn't be allowed to talk publicly. Like, their mouths should be sewn, because they will say consistently the most retarded shit ever. Like, I always know that when a guy's like, I used to be special forces, and he really was, I'm about to hear the dumbest, most brain dead take in my entire life. I have no idea. To be fair, probably most of them are chill, and it's just the loud dipshit ones that become popular, but
dealing with big countries, but you're also dealing with big egos. And Vladimir Putin grew up in a part of Russia where part of the fun was chasing.
Sorry, hold on. I'm so sorry. Wait, I'm sorry. I don't know how many new fans I have sometimes. Sorry, hold on. When I'm looking at the NATO countries, okay, obviously there are several rounds of NATO enlargement. The joke that I'm making is people always say that the invasion in Ukraine was a response to NATO expansion, but NATO's been expanding for decades. It's not true that if it was in response to NATO expansion, what were the countries that joined that instigated the invasion of Ukraine? If you followed any of the, I say history, the last 10 years of Ukraine, Russia did not invade Ukraine in response to NATO expansion. They invaded Ukraine when in 2014, the leader that they supported got thrown out of the country. That's why Crimea was invaded. It had nothing to do with NATO expansion. That's what happened. Yanukovych fled the country after Euromaidan, and then Russia invaded and took Sevastopol, and then the rest of Crimea. That's what started it. And then they began to fund and then participate in the war in the southeast. None of this has to do with NATO expansion. Like, stupid.
Rats with sticks, and he found out what it was like to corner.
Is it true that the U.S. never made an agreement to not expand NATO eastward? No, that was never the case. It was never the case. And that's only said by people that don't know any history and don't know what the fuck they're talking about. It's not possible. It's an impossibly stupid fucking statement, because it doesn't make any sense. Because when you say, oh, what was the deal? We promised that we wouldn't expand NATO 1 inch eastward. Well, where does that statement come from? Oh, Baker said it. In what year? What year did James Baker say this? Oh, in 1990. Oh, okay, well, yeah, well, that makes sense. That they wouldn't expand eastward in 1990, right? Where the fuck would they have even expanded? What do you think that even means? Do you think there was a promise that NATO wouldn't steal Poland from the Soviet Union's Warsaw Pact? Like, the statement doesn't even make any sense. Like, the 1 inch eastward statement was about German reunification and whether or not Eastern Germany would be militarized. If that was even at all an actual promise. This was a spoken thing, wasn't even written down. There is no treaty, there is no agreement. These documents have all been declassified. You can go and read them here if you want. But the statement that Baker made had to do with whether or not East Germany would be militarized if German reunification happened. The idea that there were promises not to expand NATO eastward doesn't even make sense when expanding them eastward would have meant capturing Warsaw Pact countries. It doesn't even...
Or a rat. And that's kind of where he is right now. He's been in charge of Russia since the early 90s, let's be honest. And he wants to save face with his people. He's lowering the conscription age to get people in there to fight. It's like he's not going to back out, but you can't let him take more. And I'm by no means defending him, but I also think that Volodymyr Zelensky is a puppet, and he's laundering money just like most of the people in Washington, Ukraine. That's why the whole argument in Ukraine is how much money people can personally make in Ukraine. I hopefully think that Donald Trump brings a big stick. Also, he doesn't care about embezzling money like the United States is now, and whatever they're doing. But it's not a good situation. But we definitely need to turn. We need alliance solidarity, which we lost by leaving.
I might be stupid, but why didn't we support Ukraine in 2014? When Russia initially invaded because of the Budapest Memorandum. First of all, the Budapest Memorandum was not a promise security guarantee. It was like a good faith, but I mean, like, it's not like an agreement to come to your aid. The reason why we didn't is because Obama's foreign policy was meh, because we were so soyed out from the Iraq War that we didn't want to do fucking anything internationally.
Leaving Afghanistan the way we did, and a forward defense. Right now, our Navy, which is the epitome of our forward defense, is under the Biden administration, is worrying about getting more transgender bathrooms and getting green ships, even though they're all nuclear, which is green. There needs to be some adults in the room and talk reality, because here's where we are. Ships defenses under the Biden administration is worrying about getting more transgender bathrooms and getting green ships, even though they're all nuclear, which is green. There needs to be some adults in the room and talk reality, because here's where we are, and someone needs to come to the table and talk to someone else, not worried about how much jewelry Mrs. Zelensky could buy in New York on the taxpayer's dime.
Right.
It's just... Okay.
And how popular is Volodymyr Zelensky now with Ukrainian people, do you think?
I'd say pretty popular still. Most people consider him a pretty good representative of Ukrainian people and what we want. And pretty disheartening, I'd say, to hear what people say here, but I'm used to it. Surprisingly, Chink, I agree with, in the sense that we can't allow Russia to continue get away with what they're doing, because that's what they have been doing, in particular with annexation of Georgian territory and Moldova and Ukraine in 14, and now in 22 full-scale invasion. And nothing stops them then from fully invading Moldova or Georgia. They are already doing all they can to select people there as presidents and meddle in their elections quite strongly already. And if they can't do it with just hybrid methods of sabotaging the elections and making people basically install their puppets there, then they do sort of like a blackmail, then they do threats, and then they do annexation, invasion, terror, death, and all that we are having right now in Ukraine. And that's not the fault of Biden.
And how would you describe the mood of the Ukrainian people? When I was there, like I say, 2 years ago, to a man and woman, whatever age that I met, there was this steely resolve of, we've got to win this at all costs. But the cost has been...
The Zelensky wife jewelry talking point he just mentioned is actual manufactured Russian propaganda. Oh, yeah. Yeah, shit. I'm sorry. I should. Yeah. There's a lot of like weird, stupid rumors about so many people. Oh my God. The Macron trans wife thing is also, God, bro, get these people out of my country. Can we just ship Candace Owens over to fucking Russia? Can we ship these guys back to... Oh, why are these people in my country?
Olena Zelenska, Ukraine's first lady, has a taste for the good life and is using foreign aid to fund it. Or so Ukraine's enemies would have you believe. In September 2023, as President Zelensky visited the United Nations headquarters seeking more arms for Ukraine,
evil cannot be trusted.
A story about his wife started to spread on social media.
The wife of Zelensky spends $1 million on Cartier jewelry in New York.
When they were over in the United States begging for billions of more dollars.
They're paying us back with our own money.
How did this lie spread so quickly? And what does it reveal about Russia's disinformation war against the West?
Where's the outrage about this?
It all leads back to one Instagram video.
I don't know what she said to him, but the next day I got fired. What the fuck?
This woman claims to be an intern at Cartier in New York. She alleges Zelenska spent over $1 million on jewelry and holds up a receipt as proof. But look more closely. The receipt is dated 22nd of September, when Zelenska wasn't even in the country. Despite this red flag, the story is picked up by an online French-language magazine in Burkina Faso called Net Afrique. Its article uses screenshots of the Instagram video as evidence. But the piece actually links to a video on YouTube posted by an anonymous user. The Cartier intern is the account's only upload.
President of Ukraine.
And the original Instagram profile is now private. Other news sites across Africa pick up the story within hours. The first account in English is in The Nation, a Nigerian newspaper, but it's been planted. That doesn't stop it from being picked up on social media, where users can't tell that it's been paid for, and may mistake it for a well-known American magazine which shares the same name. The first post on X is from a suspicious account. All 309 of Woke Martin's followers are newly created profiles with no activity. And its early posts are all about Zelenska's spending spree. It starts spamming right-leaning influencers with the Nation's article, and one of them takes the bait. Others follow, including Tara Reid, a former US Senate staffer who defected to Russia in 2023. By the time Russian...
Remember her? The Biden accuser? Huh. Crazy. Huh. Isn't that crazy how that worked? I like how that's how they talk about her, too. Oh, just a former staffer. That was the woman who accused Biden of raping her with his fingers like 50 years ago.
Media report on the story, it's already being shared almost 1,000 times an hour in English on X alone. Mission accomplished. This is a successful example of a new pattern in Russia's disinformation war. Researchers at Clemson University tracked how it works. Once the original source has been carefully planted, a trail is orchestrated to multiple publications. Experts call this layering. This tactic makes the story seem more credible, more likely to go viral, and undermine support for Ukraine. Since the story spread, facial recognition has revealed the Cartier intern is most likely a beautician, based in Russia.
I hadn't heard that last part. Do you think the U.S. has as elaborate a misinformation scheme in other countries like Russia and China as they do here, or is it more difficult because of how open we allow our internet to be? I don't think anybody allows their media to operate in the way we do. I don't know if we could do this type of propaganda in the places that we'd want to, right? Like in Germany or France maybe, but like in Russia, I seriously doubt there's misinformation that's this sophisticated. I'm sure we do a little bit. I mean, I know there's been reports of some, but not at this level. Somebody said you should read this. We went over this on stream. The disinformation, how it propagates from like one to the next.
Enormous. You know, so many cities just destroyed, so many people killed, all these children being taken and so on. Is there a mood now in the country that they just want peace, just want a deal, even if it means surrendering the territory that's being taken?
Well, nobody wants peace more than us. I live in a city that is bombed every day. You know, my father has been killed. So, of course, we want peace. But that depends on what that peace is, because nobody wants peace without any sort of justice, right? And that is the problem, because we have to consider our now, obviously, right? Even if the fire stops. So let's say my city stops being bombed every day. That's a bonus for me, obviously, right? And for my family and for my friends. But how important is that bonus? Because it's a temporarily bonus. We have to think about the future, that other people, other generations are not going to go through exact same things we went through. And that's quite important to most Ukrainians. But the mood, of course, have been solid. As you said, people were more enthusiastic before, specifically because of the, I would say, lack of care and lack of commitment from our allies, particularly the incredible amount of limitations on our long-range strikes. For example, as you know, UK actually gave us the long-range missiles, Storm Shadows, I believe they're called, and we couldn't really use them because of the limitations that were given to us, primarily by United States and by Biden, by the way, himself, his administration at least. So in that sense, there has been a sort of demoralizing effect, of course, because of the lack of aid, inconsistent aid from both United States States and also European countries as well. And it's hard to sustain that sort of like, I'd say, hopefulness and will when you are not confident that you will have means to fight with properly.
Yes,
And that, I would say, dampen the mood.
Yeah, I understand that. Scott, you know, a lot of people have come on this show since this war started, and they've made the argument, which I know that you subscribe to, which is effectively the West and Ukraine goaded Russia into doing this by continually pushing for NATO membership, for NATO encroachment, and so on, as the Russians saw it. There's another school of thought that this could have been resolved diplomatically. That actually, yeah, you can take that argument. You can see there's merit to that argument, certainly to a degree, but it doesn't justify launching a full invasion of your neighboring country. Would you accept that the invasion itself didn't actually have to happen?
One thing that is interesting to me is I feel like people will do this thing where you have standards for one side and not for the other. Hold on. Okay. You have standards for one side, but not for the other. So every time you talk about Russia, it is the most realpolitik answer you can ever give. What do you expect Russia to do? Well, of course they have to do this. They have no choice. Well, of course Russia's going to do this. Yeah, of course they're defending. Yeah, of course. But as soon as you talk about like Ukraine and the United States, it's like, well, what's the moral choice? Is it really righteous for us to be engaged in this? Is this really the most moral way to conduct our like the different standards are appalling for how they treat like the agency of different countries when it comes to navigating conflict.
Yes, I have a whole section in my book about all of Putin's different options that he could have taken. The book is not called Justified, why Russia had to do what they had to do. It's called Provoked, how Washington started the new Cold War with Russia and the catastrophe.
I was about to say, fuck, okay, well, this guy makes a good point, because I thought he was going to ascribe more agency to the Russian side, and then he...
Country. Would you accept that the invasion itself didn't actually have to happen?
Yes, I have a whole section in my book about all of Putin's different options that he could have taken. The book is not called Justified, why Russia had to do what they had to do. It's called Provoked, how Washington started the new Cold War with Russia and the catastrophe in Ukraine, because the book is 700 pages of all of this going back to the end of the last Cold War. And with all due respect to the guy that shot bin Laden in the head, thank you. And with all due respect to this young woman whose poor country is being bombed to death and their opinions here, it's just not the case that what we have is a simple case of a Hitlerian, Putin-led Russia running roughshod and rampage. And the only thing to stop them is when tough, good guys like us stand up to a bully like him.
It sucks because we've mind-fucked ourselves on foreign policy so much that, yeah, this would be that case. Fuck Putin. Nobody likes him. Nobody in the surrounding countries likes him, okay? His own people probably don't even really like him that much. They just think the rest of the world is fucked regardless, right? Yes, this could actually be a case where you can have your good guy, bad guy moment. Like, at no point do you ever have to try to both sides with fucking Putin. Come the fuck on.
For example, in a war that they both cited numerous times here today, the Georgia war was begun by the American sock puppet, Saakashvili. He launched that war and killed Russian peacekeepers in his initial assault. And they...
Just as I'm going to give a blanket statement here, and maybe I might be wrong at some point in time, but anytime you ever hear the phrase Russian peacekeepers, that should be one of the biggest klaxons blaring in your head, alarm bells you've ever heard. Oh, the Russian peacekeepers?
Lied about that, led by John McCain during the campaign at the time in 2008. But even the New York Times later admitted that, yeah, it was true, that was how that war started. And and part of his motivation to do that was that Bush, a few months before, had given him sort of a pseudo membership action plan for joining NATO. But you can't join NATO if you don't have settled borders. And Georgia had these two breakaway provinces under Russian protection. And so he was trying to reincorporate them.
All the phrasing, like this guy just does Russian propaganda, right? Is he an American citizen? Is he still an American citizen? Biden, if he was truly based, would just start revoking. If we're going to take away some birthright citizenship, we should take away some fucking retard right citizenship as well. You shouldn't have a right to be a citizen here just because you're fucking retarded. This guy, fuck him, kick him out.
So you would have a settled borders.
Protected Russian breakaways part. Why the fuck is Russia protecting border territory in another fucking country? Since when is it Russia's job to be the border enforcers of other people's? Excuse me?
And Georgia had these two breakaway provinces under Russian protection. And so he was trying to reincorporate them so he would have a settled border so he could join America's military alliance, which completely blew up in his face and got a bunch of people killed. But that's just not the same thing as Putin wakes up every day scheming on how he can conquer Poland, and only America's threat of ultimate H-bomb annihilation is holding him at bay. It's just really not like that. It's much more complicated than that. And, you know, again, back to your original question. It's not to say that he's justified in what he's done, but it's like if you get...
But let me give you... It's not... Oh, what's he about to say? It's not to say that he's justified in what he's done, but if you were to corner a scared cat, and if you were to do all these horrible, evil things, and you were to pressure and bully and tell somebody that you're going to destroy their country, what do you expect them to do?
In a bar fight, and you're shoving a guy with a knife in his pocket, and he stabs you, that doesn't justify... You shoving him doesn't justify him stabbing you, but also you were shoving a guy with a knife in his pocket, and don't pretend like he just woke up this morning looking to pick a fight with you. And one more thing here, a great example, and then I'll leave it, is the status quo in Crimea held from 1991 all the way through 2014. What changed was that...
Oh, and what changed was that when the leader was thrown out, the citizens of Crimea, who, by the way, were already all ethnically Russian, and they all supported Russia anyway. Like, they did a poll already multiple times. 98% of people wanted to defect to Russia anyway. And then when Russia came in to protect the people there that were being murdered by the Ukrainian army, they did another vote, and 127% of people, I think, voted to join Russia. So Russia was just protecting the people there. They didn't even want... They just wanted Sevastopol. They didn't even want all of Crimea, but they had to protect the ethnically Russian citizens that were there that needed protection from the murderous Azov neo-Nazi Ukrainians.
And there was a controversy over it. It's an extremely important Russian naval base there at Sevastopol and the rest of this. It was in controversy since independence. But the status quo held until the Barack Obama government overthrew the government of Ukraine for the second time in 10 years. And then the new regime immediately threatened to repeal and abolish the Kharkiv Pact, the agreement by which Russia was allowed to stay at Sevastopol. And it was only then that they seized the Crimean Peninsula. So it's not to say that, oh, it was perfectly justified for them to do so, but it is to say that it was Barack Obama and Joe Biden who picked that fight, and then it was Putin who finished it. And then this is a big part of the reason why the war in the East broke out immediately, was because when the dissenters seized buildings in the East, including with some Russian help, just like the Westerners helped the Maidan, they...
Oh, at least he acknowledges that Russia helped in the East, but then he has to obviously pad that with, well, in 2014, it was obviously that was a U.S.-backed coup. And we know that because of the Victoria Nuland call, where she says, we would prefer this leader to the other leader, which is all the evidence you really need of a massive top-down leadership structure change in Ukraine that there's absolutely zero evidence for, by the way, except for that one leaked phone call where we just say we would prefer one leader to another, by the way.
Declared war against them. They overreacted at John Brennan's behest. We know this, it was reported in Forbes. John Brennan went there on April 12th. They launched the war on the 14th. And the reason that they did that was because the coup had already blown up in their face in the loss of Crimea. Right. So they weren't about to tolerate this kind of dissent in the East. It's not Russian propaganda. I'm a Texan. I don't even read Russian or know what the Russians say about this stuff.
Oh,
this
sure,
is the history of the world.
I speak Russian. That's my...
That's
yes,
fine. Listen,
can I please interject with that?
Well, let me just say right here. Anytime anyone contradicts the party line on this, that's all...
All they're going to say is, they're just going to say it's Russian propaganda. And that's such a tired talking point, okay? Fuck, I wish I could do a Russian fucking fake.
Anyone ever says is that this is Russian propaganda, but that's just a bunch of crap.
Because it is.
They're plagiarizing me,
you repeated it in
and
English.
I'm just speaking the truth.
Are you getting money or not?
Russia's plagiarizing you? Bro, little bro, you're not on the team. You're not on their team, bro. You're not on the team.
I'm just wondering, you know?
Lady.
At least they pay you.
That really is all you have, because you can't contradict any of my facts, so you have to come up with...
Well, she just let her speak for like 2 seconds.
Everything you said. I participated in my...
No one in America cares about Russia at all, lady. Nobody in America cares about Russia. Back in the...
How old is this guy? Because he looks like he's older than 22. Nobody in the United States cares about Russia? Do you remember who was the Cold War between? It was the Soviet Union and... Who else?
The days of communism, there were communists that did.
Can I please have a word? This person spoke quite a bit. We had given him a rooper to repeat Russian talking points and lies, blatant lies. So, you know,
okay, well, Scott, let Anna just respond to what you were saying, Scott.
All of the bullshit was said, so it's kind of difficult to counter everything. Basically, it was not a coup. It was a revolution that millions of people participated in.
Crucial error. Massive crucial error. She said coup. Now I'm not sure if I should believe the Russian guy or not.
To counter everything, basically, it was not a coup. It was a revolution that millions of people participated in. The reason we participated, me included, I was 19 back in the day, it was because we had severe problems with corruption and a tyrannical puppet of Russia, Yanukovych, who refused to make a treaty with the European Union, which is what most of the people in Ukraine wanted, 60-something%, and especially younger people wanted to move away from Russian control, from Russians owning every single business industry in my country, and to have some sort of like laws and order, and also have some sort of democracy and liberty. That is what something people have in the West, and that's something that we did not have. So that was about, the revolution was about that, about students going and protesting and getting beaten up, and Yanukovych then going to Russia to essentially ask Putin, his buddy, how can he stop.
Wasn't the initial main justification for the invasion the denazification of Ukraine? Where have those talking points gone? It's always, it's like the vaccine shit. You just like hop from the next to the next to the next to the next to the next. Remember, okay, that you're fencing with a guy, okay, who's using a what's a normal stabbing sword? A long sword, but you're using like a rubber bath toy. So it's fun for them. They're just like having fun. It was denazification. Oh, and you hit them with the rubber bat, and then they laugh, and they're like, "Oh, okay." It was the biolabs. I'm like, "Oh, okay." It was the coup that the U.S. did. Oh, well, it was the it was their border security. Like, it's just like it's just one thing to the next. They don't really truly believe or know or care about any of these stupid things. All of these talking points are debunked in 2 seconds of a Google search. They're not even good talking points. He said he wrote a 700-page book. I'm so curious what's in the.
Stop the protesters, which he then made dictator laws that prohibited people to effectively protest at all in this country. So we didn't appreciate that, and we went, literally millions of people participated in Maidan. That is not a coup. That is not something you buy for Obama or Nuland cookies. I'm sorry to say, never received a single cookie yet. It's been a long time. And yeah, all of that, when going to Georgia is a whole other thing, but that's just what Russia does. It creates unrest. It supports militias in the countries, and then it basically floods them with weapons, and it also applies its own soldiers to annex territory by the guise of protecting Russian speakers or any of that.
Oh, this is such a bullshit fucking radar for me. After learning about David Irving, who was a renowned World War II historian, and he would always be renowned because of how many footnotes he had. He always had so many footnotes, so many annotations. But then when he went to court over kind of the material of one of his books, and then people started digging through his footnotes and annotations, they were like, oh, this is all bullshit. You take everything out of context. The underlying material never supports what you're saying. And David Irving is considered a debunked fraud, pseudo-historian, fucking loser. Finkelstein is another guy who always talks about how many footnotes and annotations he has. Now, we've gone through, especially the Gaza and inquest into its martyrdom or whatever. He's another guy. Oh, so many footnotes, so many annotations, so many whatever. And somebody linked this. Which one of these dipshits is Scott Horton? Is it this guy on the left? And now I see this at the very top of his thing. This book contains more than 6,600 footnotes and 7,800 citations. This is always a red flag to me now. Anytime somebody brags about how many footnotes or citations they have, not to say that it's necessarily bad. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad or not okay, but always, that should always be like just a red flag.
Scott is a master, I believe Scott is the name, right, here, but I am a Russian speaker from Eastern Ukraine. It's about as east as it gets in Kharkiv, and I didn't require their protection. I was never prosecuted. What they did is that they attacked us on the.
I remember Destiny prompts to go over at Finkel's book citation. What do you mean we did? We went over quite a few of them. Well, quite a few, at least like 10 of them. I always said that like Finkelstein books are a really, really, really good place to begin if you really want to learn like in-depth Israel-Palestine stuff, because basically whenever he makes a claim, you should just research the claim and you'll learn so much about, you'll learn a lot about Israel, you'll learn a lot about how people lie about Israel, and then you'll probably learn a lot about the particular topic back and forth. Because so many bad, Finkelstein, he's either the source of or the propagator of so much misinformation about Israel that you can learn almost all the bullshit talking points that the other side will bring up just by going through one of his books.
The guise of protecting Russian speakers that would never prosecuted in this country, because half of us literally are Russian speakers who have been Russified back in the day by Russian Empire. So yeah, this war is about not about you I'm sad to say some things are not about America. This war is about our very long time, centuries-long oppressor trying to thrust us back under their control. And we didn't want that. People in Georgia don't want that, if you can see it by now, currently, by the revolution and the protests going on in the country, exactly for the same reason, because their corrupt Russian puppet government refused the people's will to be part of Europe. So it was never about NATO, because we never discussed joining NATO until Russian invasion. It was never even a conversation in Ukraine about joining NATO. So thanks for the lies, obviously. Also, yeah, they do have borders with NATO right now, and they had them before. Now it's even bigger. It doubled because Finland, in fear of Russia, joined NATO. That's why people join NATO, because they want protection from Russian aggression.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Rob, you've been waiting patiently. It's interesting. I mean, I find with these debates, I learn a lot, but I'm not entirely sure where the truth lies, having just heard two very different versions of the history here. What would you like to say?
Well, I mean, what I like to say is, obviously Anna has more experience than me. She lives there. She's lost family members, and having seen war.
A lot of people emailed me after that. I read that one email saying that we just need slogans, and I try to think of like punchy questions. It's so hard to have punchy questions because usually questions are just an invitation for the other side to just ramble on some bullshit. But like I feel like for Trump, like, where is Pence? Why aren't you running with Pence again? I feel like that's a good question that he should be forced to answer without being allowed to ramble. For this talking point, like, I feel like the question is, right, okay, Russia's afraid of NATO. It's the fear of NATO. Oh, it's the fear of NATO expansion. Why is it that after the Soviet Union broke up in 91, where are all of these countries begging to go back to Russia? Why aren't they? Why wouldn't you want to join, like, the massive state with a huge economy? Like, why wouldn't you want to go back to what happened there? Why would they not want to do that? What's going on there, man? What's going on there?
Or firsthand, I know that most people don't want to be at war. Most people are trying to get on with their lives, and unfortunately, there are bad people that force this stuff. And my heart goes out to them too. And I'm definitely going to buy Scott's book after this. I'm actually sitting here on this panel learning a lot, and I'm open-minded about stuff because I used to be, America, apple pie, and we're the greatest in the world. But I've seen stuff that we've done. Sitting here in the United States, having worked in D.C. and living in New York, I just don't like my taxpayer dollars going over to a place where people are funneling into their own pockets and threatening a nuclear war, because it doesn't matter who does it. If one nuke gets launched, if it's India to Pakistan or Israel to somewhere else, or the United States decides, the only country, by the way, to ever drop a nuclear weapon on another country, if that happens again, we're going to go into a thing called nuclear winter, and you're going to want to die in the blast. You're not going to want to die.
This is the special forces guy, right? I don't understand how people don't. I don't understand why we're making so many arguments for appeasement. What? I don't understand why this became the new thing. What's the quote? History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Like, I feel like you encourage fucky behavior. I don't have the broad historical background to say that. I'm very mind fucked on Israel. That if you're weak, people will attack you because they think there's no consequences. Because why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't you? What are you, stupid? What, you think the U.S. is actually going to nuke you or attack you? Of course, like, the fear has to be there. It's mad, not sad. Mutually assured destruction, not singularly assured or unilaterally assured destruction. Like, what's your best advice for researching something like this? More importantly, what's your favorite sauce to dip chicken tenders in? What's your favorite advice for, I don't even know, bro. I'm not sure. You just have to read shit and have a good mind to pick out what's true and what's false. Just do that, and then you're good. Boom. I like spicy sauces. I think the buffalo sauce from McDonald's is an almost perfect sauce, okay? That's a good sauce.
Doing that. My interest is in getting corrupt politics out. Well, first here, hopefully it starts in January, and then maybe it can spread somewhere else. You're never going to get rid of corrupt politicians because narcissists are they just go there. Washington's full of them. I've been there. I've seen them. Obviously, Vladimir Putin's a horrible person. I don't like Volodymyr Zelensky either. I'm tired of seeing innocent people get killed for other people getting rich.
Like, it's uttered in the same breath. It's uttered in the same breath. Like, sure, Putin's bad. I mean, Zelensky though, Jesus, right? Yeah. I mean, yeah, Hitler's bad, but George Bush, yeah. Mussolini's not the greatest, but Obama, Libya, hello? Like, it's like in the same breath. Like,
obviously, Vladimir Putin's a horrible person. I don't like Volodymyr Zelensky either. I'm tired of seeing innocent people get killed for other people getting rich, because that's what happens.
Oh, innocent people getting killed for other people getting rich. Oh, it's all the bullshit talking points have come out to play. All of them, all at the same time.
I'm tired of seeing soldiers who don't want to be there, both Ukraine and Russia, fighting in trenches like they did in World War I and getting hit with suicide drones, which is the wave of the future, almost to the point where we're going to stop.
Who invaded?
Having manned jets, because it's a waste of time and legions of drones will be fighting. I hate to see this escalation of force. I hate to see people getting rich everywhere, from the industrial complex to the military. Of big
no! I was going to say this 10 seconds ago. I should have said it. Fuck, it would have been a good pre-watch. I was like, how long until you bring up the military industrial complex? Fuck, all the shit talking points will come out to play.
karma of all that stuff. It's just sad as someone who went somewhere, risked my own life to kill the #1 terrorist in the world, and now wonder if some of the places we went were even worth it, or we're just making people like Dick Cheney rich. So that's why I'm here, and I'm just open-minded. I want to hear what Cenk has to say. Buying the book, love to hear Scott's book, love to hear what Anna's saying, and I'm honest to God just learning stuff here today. So
do you know what? That's such a great, honest answer, Rob.
Bro, Piers made me want to fucking kill myself. Oh my God. The questions.
The American
Piers is a terrorist, okay, when it comes to asking questions on these panels. This was agonizing. The SEAL guy is one of the biggest grifters in the Special Forces community. It's very likely he wasn't the one who pulled the trigger on bin Laden, and even people from his team have discredited him multiple times.
System against Trump in the last.
People say they fucked my mic on this. I'm connected to good internet now, so there's no way that it should be.
Did a judge actually
I'm talking about an interview
of Hunter. Where are the charges? They've been investigating Hunter Biden for 4 years. Where are the charges? I thought we were going to get impeachment charges from Jim Jordan. Where are the charges for Hunter Biden?
It's a great question. I can answer that
The
because I
scope
actually read
into
it.
which they looked into Hunter Biden was very narrow.
The DOJ made sure that the statute of limitations on the worst crimes that dealt with the tax issues were outside the statute of limitations. So if you go talk to a lawyer, they'll explain what that means to you. But the DOJ
I don't need to talk to the lawyer. I read the documents. Thank you.
This is the new cope that they.
That's why I love having you on Uncensored, because you're an honest guy, and I really appreciate that. I feel the same way. I don't profess to be a great expert here. Cenk, I'm going to come to you.
There are so many things in life, like the microaggressions, it's these people that are the worst people. I would just rather have a Nazi. Just give me a Nazi, or give me a Russian, give me a Putin. I would just rather have these people than the just asking questions, honest center crowd that are just doing their best. Like, what do you call this way of acting where you appear super impartial and good faith, but you slant towards the inferior side, either purposely or because you don't? I want to see the people come out who are like, I don't know, it just seems like Putin is like a genocidal fucking maniac dictator. I don't know. Is that fair, do you think? Or I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Like, Chechnya, twice. Jeez, man, what happened there? I don't know, man. I'm just asking questions. You know, like, it's never that way. It's never that way. It's always the other way. It's always the other way. It's always the other way. Why is it never that way? Man, Aleppo, did you see that Putin helped with that? Why do you think he did it like that, man? Damn, they blew a lot of shit up there. Is there a reason why? I know we have problems with the CIA. Wagner, though? What's going on there, man? I don't know. That just kind of weird, doesn't it? Like, they really don't have any direct connection to Russia at all. I don't know. It's kind of strange, isn't it? That they're always in like the same spot, that Russian interests, you don't care. Like, isn't that kind of, it's never that way. Why?
In a second.
Isn't it weird how lucky Putin is that all of his political opponents just like dive random shit? Like, what's going on there? What's up with that?
I feel the same way. I don't profess to be a great expert here. Cenk, I'm going to come to you in a second. I'm just going to have a quick break to speak to the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, General Wesley Clark. General, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Oh, happy to be here, Piers. I'm listening to this panel. Look, there's a lot of misinformation. Is
that Ron Paul? That chat is not entirely correct. The reality is that 3 guys on the team entered UBL's room and shot him before O'Neill did, but he was most likely the guy that actually killed him. Listen, if you got shot 3 times, okay, with 5.56 rounds, I'm assuming they're using M4s or some variation or whatever, right? You're probably dead, okay? I don't think you're coming back from that one. The only thing I will say about Obama, Osama. Wait, Obama? Osama. Obama bin Laden? Osama bin Laden. Holy shit. Osama bin Laden is, he had a copy of... Oh, ew, never mind. Wait, I thought I saw a picture of the actual PlayStation case. I didn't know you had the PC version. Ew. Wait, what? Okay, am I just inventing a picture that I thought that it was okay, never mind. I thought I saw a picture of like some scattered shit and there was like a Final Fantasy VII disc. I think I'm just fucking losing it. Never mind, okay.
in Ukraine on the 31st of March. I went through Maidan. I talked to the people. I looked at the lamppost where Putin's henchmen had killed a bunch of Ukrainians. There were a bunch of bullets still embedded in the lamppost. I followed it very, very closely. I don't know exactly what you want to talk about. If I'd been on your panel, I would probably disagree with most of them. The people in Ukraine are fighting for democracy. NATO didn't push itself to the borders. It was drawn to the borders by the people in Eastern Europe who wanted.
No, that too. These countries begged to join NATO. Why? If Russia's so chill and cool, why did they beg? You want to know why Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, you want to know why they joined in groups? Why these countries joined in groups? It's because it felt horrible and because you're like favoring a country. You're not just going to let one of them into it. You're not just going to let one. People wanted to join in groups because they all wanted to be. Bro, do you want to be? Do you know what it's like? What it would be like joining NATO? Ukraine is feeling this right now. Okay, imagine you're in a fucking. Imagine you're on a neighborhood block. And there's 10 houses, and every single house has a fucking sign in the front yard saying like protected by ADT or protected by security or whatever. And you're the only house without a security system. You're like, fuck you guys, what the fuck? And then the fucking robbers come down the street. You're like, well, fuck me, I guess, because I'm the only one without a fucking key camera or whatever. I guess come fuck my shit up, right? You have to want to join NATO. They work to join NATO, and then everybody in NATO has to accept you. The idea that these countries are like absorbed by or forced to join NATO, like, come on, bro. It's such a stupid, like NATO is expanding eastward in some militaristic fashion.
NATO didn't push itself to the borders. It was drawn to the borders by the people in Eastern Europe who wanted freedom. They wanted freedom from Russian oppression. That's why NATO expanded in response to them. Not because NATO wanted to expand. It's because in order to stabilize, you had to be able to provide investment, and to get investment, people needed security, and they were living in fear of Russia coming back. Now, when did Putin?
Wait, who the fuck is this guy? Yes. This ties in kind of to what I was talking about yesterday. People always have this assumption, they're like, oh, corrupt countries, or that's where we're going to go and invest in because we can abuse the population, blah, blah. No, stable countries is where people like to establish business. You need stability. You need political stability, geographic stability. You have to have stability in order for the economy to follow. Your institutions are what build your country. I don't mean that in a, like, the FDA. I just mean like knowing that if somebody fucks me over, I can take them to court and sue them. There is a rule of law that if I invest in something, somebody's not just gonna steal my fucking money, that there are functional banks that I can withdraw money from if I need it. There are creditors and debtors that are assured to borrow money and pay money back. Like these are a part of like a stable country that you have to be. We take a lot of this for granted in the West because we're spoiled, but it's good to have these things. And when you don't, it's really hard to make anything work.
Putin decide to come back?
Former NATO Supreme Allied Commander Wesley Clark. Oh. My God, where's his theme music when he joined?
It's security, and they were living in fear of Russia coming back. Now, when did Putin decide to come back? As soon as he became president in 1999, at the speech he made in the inauguration of President Kuchma in Ukraine. Putin said, Ukraine and Russia, we're more than brothers. We're in each other's souls. Poland sent its national security advisor to see me after that, said, he's trying to restore the Soviet Union. He's coming after us. So this is a long-held ambition by Mr. Putin, and he's seen weakness in the West repeatedly. And that weakness has encouraged him to move. And it's going to continue until the West shows strength. And that strength means providing much more to Ukraine, bringing Ukraine into NATO, and saying to Mr. Putin very directly, look, stop. We're not interested in strategic arms discussions. We're not interested in investing in your economy. We're not interested in having nice conversations in Switzerland with you until you pull back.
Like, if you want to blame anybody, it wouldn't even be NATO. It would be the European Union, right? Because the big conflict that was going on prior to 2014 was the Soviet Union was engaged in a hot and cold war with the European Union, where they were shooting missiles at each other, like fighting over Ukrainian ground in order to try to get Ukraine to join their particular markets. Or, oh no, wait, fuck. No, wait, never mind. I think Ukraine just wanted to join the European Union market because it was a better market. Oh. Wait, no, there was no actual war. Ukraine was just like, hey, I want access to the European Union market. And Russia said, no, you're not allowed to do that. You need to join our trade union, our customs union. It's even a more restrictive market. Like the European Union, it would have just given them a good, like basically a trade deal. I don't even think it was joining like an official capacity. Like, it was just like having access to the trade market. I think it was a bilateral, trade agreement that was going to be signed. But for Russia, they were like, no. Join our trade union, meaning that Russia gets to set tariff policy and everything else for the entirety of everybody involved. Like that's it. Like it's like the difference here is stark, right? Like, no, you can't choose to join or choose to gain access to the European markets. We're going to invade you, so you have to join us. Be our friend.
We're not interested in having nice conversations in Switzerland with you until you pull back. Return the children. Account for the inductees. bring to trial the war criminals that have been indicted in Ukrainian courts, and you owe us close to $1 trillion in destruction of our country. So Piers, these are very clear lines. This is 1937, 1938. And you would have heard the same kind of apologists for Hitler. You would have heard them saying that the peace in Versailles was unfair, and the French, and there's corruption and so forth. There's corruption in every government. It's there in your government. It's there in the United States. It's there in Ukraine, but it's never the same as it is in Russia, where organized crime works as an arm of the government connected to the intelligence agencies to assure that Putin and his cronies get what they want.
Oh, God. But what about the Twitter files of the United States? You're going to say the CIA is any different? You really think the CIA is any fucking different, bro? In America, we have corruption too, bro. You don't even know what corruption is, okay? What about fucking Andrew Tate? You're going to talk to me about corruption when an innocent, balding man like that is being arrested and locked up for no good reason by the CIA?
So I think it's a very difficult time. I don't know how the negotiations are going to turn out, but I would tell you this, that Mr. Trump's in a tough position, because if he gives Putin what he wants, he looks weak to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And if he looks to the rest of the world, China's going to move. We've got in the United States a window now to do something in the Middle East, and I think Netanyahu probably will ask Mr. Trump to do it and pose a choice for the Iranian regime: either knock off the hegemonial aspirations and shut down this arc of resistance, including the weapons to the Houthis, or face the consequences.
That's fucking delusional, but I appreciate the optimism.
With Iran, you have to go to the source. With Russia, you have to stand firm. We've had deterrence in place for 70 years. We have nuclear weapons. Putin doesn't want to use a nuclear weapon. He's afraid of nuclear weapons, but he's using them to threaten. So people like your bearded guy whose name I didn't get, these are people who are repeating Russian talking points.
True.
That's exactly what the woman from Ukraine said. Now,
True.
I will tell you that people in Ukraine are suffering, and they would love an end to this conflict. They didn't choose it. It was forced on them. But the only way it's going to be successfully resolved is by strong U.S. leadership. And Mr. Trump is in a position where no matter what he said about ending the war in 24 hours, he's in a position where he simply cannot and will not concede everything that Putin wants. He won't do it. If he does, you won't make America great again. You'll invite war elsewhere in the world.
True.
I see you brought in the rest of the panel here.
Yeah.
I'll stop.
Well, no, you know what, General? I've interviewed you many times. I've seen you interview many times. I've never seen you quite this angry. It feels to me like you're angry about where things have
I'm
gone
angry
to.
about, well, Piers, I'm angry about hearing misinformation from some members of your, okay? Now, I was, can I explain something before you talk, please, sir? I was at the beginning of NATO enlargement. I was there at the beginning. I talked to foreign leaders. I set up the program as a staff officer in the Pentagon. I was the NATO commander who went to Bulgaria.
Oh, so he's literally the deep state.
And Romania and Estonia and Latvia. And they told me, we've got to be in NATO. They didn't say, hey, if you want us, okay, I bet you, blah, 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 blah. We said, we don't want you. It's too much of a problem. They said, please, please.
Yeah, they all wanted to join. They were like, not just one, please, let us in, please.
Please help us. And so that's exactly.
I'm laughing. It's not funny. It's like.
What happened? That's how we got there. In 2014, when Putin went into Crimea, the Ukrainians could have stopped it. But they asked the United States, what should we do? And the United States told them, give up Crimea. Why? Because we wanted Putin's cooperation in the Middle East.
Because we were still in 2014. Were we worried about when did the ISIS shit even start? God, fuck. Obama foreign policy. Oh no. We don't talk about Obama's foreign policy, okay?
And with Iran to stop Iran's nuclear program. When Putin went further in Donbass, we provided information, but we provided no lethal assistance to Ukraine. For all these years, the United States administration was timid in dealing with Putin. It's like one member of the administration said recently, the Biden administration said, oh, we never expected to have nuclear weapons. I mean, ooh. Nuclear weapons have been the foundation for Western security since the end of the Second World War. We've had near confrontations with the Soviets. And because American presidents didn't back down, we didn't have war. Now, Mr. Trump has put himself in an extremely difficult position. But all of our talk about Ukraine and telling Ukraine in advance, you're going to have to give up your territory. And by the way, you're not going to be a member of NATO. Let's not do any of this right now. Let's get the forces in Ukraine, the weapons.
Have you noticed how Western academia has a blind spot for Russian imperialism? They dig into British, French, American colonialism, but bought into, inadvertently, Soviet anti-imperialist propaganda. Meanwhile, the USSR was doing ethnic cleansing, Russification, and crushing independence movements, but it gets glossed over. Even after the collapse, fears of chaos/nationalism led to dismissing independence movements. Maybe it's the short form /nuance filter in action. Yeah, it's just this weird, like, America bad thing. Am I making this up? I don't know if I'm buying into a little bit too much Western propaganda, but for the, was it true that they were just literally squishing people under tanks in the for the Hungarian Revolution? This is the one where This is where the term tanky comes from, because I know they rolled tanks into the city to squash this revolution, because the Hungarians were trying to revolt. Yes, they did. Were they actually running people over with tanks? But this is where the term tanky comes from. Nobody cares about any of this shit, though. Man, if you're a blue collar worker in the U.S. and you're broke, you should just come fucking move to Miami, because goddamn, there's always construction out here. Or go to Seattle, bro. I have never seen more cranes in my life than when I'm in Seattle. Well, it's been a few years, but you see like 50. They must be fucking building on every single building out there. What the fuck? I don't know if it's still like that, but.
And support they need so that the people who have already been mobilized can have these weapons and provide the reserves that are necessary in Ukraine. Let's leave an open-ended commitment for Mr. Trump. Let's tell the Ukrainians, strike to your heart's content in Russia. You get no sanctuary, Mr. Putin. You started this. You pay the price.
Yeah.
And then let's go into the talk with understanding what we want. We want all of Ukraine's land back. We want reparations. We want the children returned. We want.
Holy, what? Based? Who is this guy? Oh my God.
Understanding what we want. We want all of Ukraine's land back. We want reparations. We want the children returned. We want the missing people accounted for. And we want the war criminals put on trial. And then we can talk about sanctions relief. No sanctions relief until the conditions are satisfied. And, it's very hard for democracies to be able to stand up to a man like Putin. He doesn't have to worry about re-election. But we need the leadership in the West. I've seen it in some countries. Macron sometimes comes off very strong. Britain has come off very strong in this. And right now, the Biden administration is trying to surge support into Ukraine. And I think President Trump, when he comes in, is going to realize that whatever his relationship is with Mr. Putin and however many times he's called him, he's not going to easily give in and sacrifice Ukraine. He can't afford to. And Putin's already threatened him.
Piers.
Putin's already told him that he's worried about his safety. That's like Tony Soprano saying to you, I'm really worried about the way you're walking across the street. So I'm not angry, Piers, except that there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Can I get in here and respond now, please?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, General, thank you. Just, if you don't mind, I'll bring the others in. I've got to say, you have articulated exactly what I've been feeling this entire time. And I've started to think I was going completely mad. But to have somebody with your experience, particularly from the very start of NATO, outlining what I believe has been the way this has all played out.
Thank you, Mr. NATO.
Is actually quite reassuring to me that I've not gone nuts. Let me bring in Cenk, because you've not had a chance to respond for a while. Scott, I'm going to come to you. Scott, I will come to you after Cenk. I must let Cenk have his say. Cenk, you've been listening to all this, very different opinions. But what is your reaction?
Okay, Cenk. Where does Cenk stand on this? I think he's just like a peace. We need peace, guys. I think he's like a peace at all costs. And then like a little bit of America bad. Peace and a little bit of America bad, I think. But he'll say Putin is bad. He might even think like Putin is worse than the West for sure. But also America kind of bad. And we need peace, I think. But let's see.
Yeah, I want to tell you my thoughts, and then I actually would love to ask General Clark a question. And so, look...
and something about the military-industrial complex and the donor class, because it's all for money for the Halliburtons and something... Iraq, yeah, okay.
I understand both sides of this equation. And so if you're the Ukrainians, imagine if some other nation had taken 20% of America. Would we want to give up? Would we want to go, oh, yeah, it's okay. Just take Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, et cetera. It's fine. No, we'd hate it, and we'd fight forever, right? So I understand that. On the other hand, when General Clark starts talking about the nuclear weapons, I get super scared because what if Trump's bluff gets called at some point? Trump's main bluff is, oh, yeah, you better not mess with me. I'm crazy. I'll make this war much bigger if you mess with me. Yeah, but what if Putin says, yeah, go ahead? Well, then we're in a lot of trouble, right? Because I don't want to get involved in a war like this. I don't want to get involved with nuclear weapons, et cetera. On the other hand,
I'm so sorry. I know that this sounds unhinged. But he's being unhinged. If somebody says, we're going to make this a bigger conflict, all right? The only response is, okay, your nuclear winter is going to be a lot colder than ours, all right? Good luck. And then you send your subs out, you get your planes airborne, and you bring your ICBMs out. And that's what it has to be. Because as soon as somebody thinks that they can saber rattle nuclear weapons and you back off, you've basically told them, listen, okay, there's so much in life where I tell people, like, people are always like, why is this guy so irrational? Well, what does he do whenever, what do you do when he acts like this? Well, eventually, like, he screams at me and and eventually, I give in and I stop and it's like, oh, well, it sounds like he's not being irrational. It sounds like he's being perfectly rational. When he hits you, when he screams at you, you fuck off and he gets what he wants. It sounds like he's actually being incredibly sane, right? If you saber rattle your nuclear arsenal and people acquiesce and let you do whatever, you want to do, what are you training them to do? Oh, well, whenever I bring up the nuke thing, everybody seems to fuck off. What's the message that you send to the world? One, you should nuclear saber rattle. It works because you've got useful idiots like Cenk here, who actually I believe is a useful idiot. I don't think he's bad faith like the other guy's a Russian fucking stooge, okay? I think Cenk is just being dumb here, right? Which is compliment compared to this other guy. I think Cenk is earnest. But when you acquiesce to people saber rattling, you tell people that one, yeah, if Russia wants to do whatever they want, they can as long as they say we have nukes. And two, you tell everybody else that you need nuclear weapons as well, right? Because we're not going to listen to you or do anything unless you've got nukes as well, right? And the question that I always pose to people like this, because there might be rational arguments for why we shouldn't support Ukraine, okay? I would disagree with them, but maybe reasonable minds can make that argument. But none of those arguments include the phrase, well, it might be World War III if they nuke us, because that exact same argument can be transposed onto every other NATO country, right? What if Russia invades Poland? Well, fuck. Do we really want to be threatening World War III? Do we really want nuclear winter? Do we really want to bring out the nukes? All those exact same arguments carry over. So is there no more Article 5? Do we not defend allies from invasions from nuclear powers then? Is that that doesn't make any sense? What's the response there, you know?
Point about Russian aggression is definitely true. I can't stand these people starting wars, taking territory, and it breaks my heart to see it, the kidnapped children, et cetera. So, but General Clark, the question I wanted to ask you, and you know how much I respect you, and we have a relationship before. And by the way, the audience should know, General Clark is the one that called out the neocons for trying to invade 7 countries at once, including the Iraq War. And so he's earned a lot of respect by doing that. But General Clark, this is a genuine question, which is, okay, but if we go with what you're saying, how long do we fight? How long does Ukraine fight? How much money do we spend? How many years of war do we have to endure? And what if Ukraine just doesn't win? So, okay, but if we go with what you're saying, how long do we fight? How long does Ukraine fight? How much money do we spend? How many years of war do we have to endure? And what if Ukraine just doesn't win? Question, which is, okay, but if we go with what you're saying, how long do we fight? How long does Ukraine fight? How much money do we spend? How many years of war do we have to endure? And what if Ukraine just doesn't win?
Why doesn't he make this exact argument for Palestine that has less right to their borders, that has less of an international agreement in terms of establishing where they exist, that has less of a chance of winning? Why doesn't he make this exact same argument for Palestine? Imagine an argument with you're like, maybe it's time to just stop fighting, bro. Like, are you really going to beat Israel at this point? Like, how many of your people are dying, right? Didn't you say 20, 30, 40, 100,000? How many people are you saying are dead right now? Maybe they should just stop fighting, bro, right? But when it comes to Palestine, bro, they got to fight fucking forever. They need to go forever. And they're fully justified in fighting forever. Who cares how many people die, right?
So let's say we go another 2 years, 5 years, 20 years. How do we resolve it if Ukraine can't win?
Well, I think what you have to do is understand that this war will go on until Putin believes he can't win. So all the discussion in the West about how to preemptively surrender territory and all this it all feeds Putin's appetite. He understands from all this discussion that the West is weakening in its will, and therefore...
This is also invoking Hillary Clinton's public-private position. Even if Ukraine was willing to surrender some land, and even if the United States was willing to entertain that agreement, that's not what you say publicly, and that's not the position that you present publicly. You say, oh, territory in Ukraine that Russia wants to occupy? Yeah, sure, they might get some territory. It's going to be population zero by the time they get it, because every man, woman, and child is going to fight to the death, right? Even if that's not the actual position, right? This is still be publicly facing. This is what you would say, right? And like people like Trump and the Trump's dick suck should know this, right? When you go into negotiations, you don't go in saying like, okay, I'm willing to give this much, right? You're going with like, I want 40%. Maybe you will negotiate down to 30%, but you don't open with like, I want 40%, but I'd be willing to go as low as 30. Why the fuck would you say that, right?
Appetite. He understands from all this discussion that the West is weakening in its will, and therefore if he just keeps shoving soldiers forward, that eventually the West will comply and cut off assistance to Ukraine and tell Ukraine, good luck, hope you enjoy being part of Poland again, because that's his aim. He doesn't really care about Lviv. What he wants is the north coast of the Black Sea and Odessa, and of course Kharkiv and Kyiv and so forth, and then he wants the rest of Europe, Eastern Europe, that used to be under Soviet dominion. He needs this in order to be able to confront China, and this is the ultimate fear of Russia and its leadership. And they know they can't confront China unless they have control over Eastern Europe, including the Baltics and Poland and the rest of the Balkan Peninsula. And so it's a long-term geostrategic game. And Cenk, I just tell you this, there's no American soldiers over there getting killed. And most of the money that's been appropriated by the United States has gone to buy new weapons in the United States. We're giving them the old stuff, the old ATACMs. We've just recently even reprioritized our.
Like, why is this still a talking point? Like, why do people still bring up this? We gave them $200 billion in fucking Benjamins that we just shipped like crates of stacks of cash.
Military sales program. We're still selling ATACMs to Morocco. Now, why does Morocco need 60 ATACMs? I don't know. But we're selling stuff off Patriots all over the world. That stuff should go to Ukraine. As long as the United States stands firm, we won't have nuclear weapons and nuclear war. Putin doesn't want it either. But he does believe right now that we will collapse. And he will continue to threaten the nuclear and play the nuclear card because that's the way the Russians play it.
Yeah.
And so you
And it
just have to
works.
stand firm against it. And you need strong leadership, and you need the American people behind you. And what you have to understand is that Putin understands how to manipulate public opinion. In every country in Europe, there are people there saying, just like one of the gentlemen on this panel said, you know, this is crazy, and people are getting killed, and I'm tired of seeing people dying, and we've got to have peace. In 1937, 38, in Europe, everybody had fresh memories of the First World War. It was a horrible experience. A whole generation of British young men were wiped out. The French got so bad that in one group of French divisions, they pulled out every 10th soldier and shot him for cowardice. Nobody wanted a repeat of the First World War. And so
I remember in World War II, they had to send this mission because like 3 or 4 brothers in the same family had died, and they had to send this whole squad to get this with the last brother. I'm just kidding.
Hitler occupied the Rhineland against, and so Hitler rearmed. Hitler rebuilt the military. And at every stage, there were people who said, well, this is really dangerous, but please, we can't think about it. It can't be another world war. So we're revisiting this in a slightly different form today. If we believe in democracy, if we believe in what we set up, if we believe in the lessons we learned from this.
Remember, World War I was called the Great War because it was supposed to be the war to end all war. That was supposed to be the last war in the history of the planet.
Second World War. Then we've got to stand firm against Mr. Putin. President Biden should have said to him, look, bud, you come after Ukraine, I promise you, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. But he didn't say that. And he's never said that.
No, he hasn't.
That's the policy has to start.
Okay, General, thank you very much. Let me bring Scott Halton in to respond to that, because you're being compared to the people back in the late 30s who just didn't see the danger of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis.
It's complete. If anything, God, please bring up Azov. If anything, the Ukrainians are the Nazis. Please, 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 yes. Please, yes. I need a Red Bull. Hold on. Please, if anything, it's the Ukrainians that are the Nazis. Azov. What about Azov? I don't know if they might have retired that talking point by now, but please.
Completely preposterous, and it's the refuge of scoundrels who have run out of arguments. I think anyone could see that. It's the same thing as this endless claim. I mean, isn't this just a talking point that anyone who disagrees is repeating Russian talking points? I don't sit around watching RT all day, memorizing what the Russian regime says and repeating that. I wrote a book that's 775.
I mean, they gave like substantive refutations to everything you said. I don't know why you're harping so much on this point, but okay.
1,000 words. Most of it is American graybeards talking about how they know better than the thing that they're about to do, and then doing.
You're the only one with a beard on this panel, sir.
It anyway. And, one of the things that I talk about in there, although I couldn't find too much about General Clark's role in this, but when there was a debate, and I'd like to pose this in the form of a question to him, when there was a debate in the 1990s in the Bill Clinton administration about whether to do NATO expansion or whether to do the Partnership for Peace, was it not?
Did they not consider that if they expand NATO too much, that it might threaten Russian interests? Yeah, these were talks that all of these things were considered early on, and some of these proposals were shot down early on for sure. But countries were begging to get, these are all the most boring talking points. These people, this guy wrote a book. It's so like level 1.
The Secretary.
I don't even know. Maybe that's not what he's going to say, though. I'm sorry.
Of Defense, William Perry, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, John Shalikashvili, with the help of General Clark. Weren't they the ones who argued the Pentagon for peace? Let's do the Partnership for Peace instead of NATO expansion. And it was Richard Holbrooke and Talbot and Lake who outclassed the Pentagon in office politics and forced through NATO expansion instead. And the William Perry, John Shalikashvili, and I believe at the time, Wesley Clark argument was, we don't want to redraw the dividing line in Europe. Yes, it's true. A lot of these countries that used to be dominated by Soviet communists in the battle days, of course, want to join NATO. But we got to look at what's good for us. And what's most important for us is that we keep a decent relationship, a stable relationship with Russia. And one great way to do that.
What is even that argument? Like, fuck all these other countries. Like you're the one. This is like the America evil argument. Why is it even the most important thing? Like,
would be to, as they said they were going to do at the time, Piers, turn NATO into a political organization, sort of like the EU.
Fuck me. This is true, actually. And honest to God, I just don't have the World War II background to say it. So I try not to make very many strong claims about World War II because we haven't gotten there yet. But somebody said, Destiny, I hate that he said he's comparing them to Nazis in the 30s. They aren't Nazis in the 30s. They are Americans in the 30s. You have Coughlin and Lindbergh pushing hard for isolationism in the face of Europe falling. Listen, I want to champion the U.S., and I love that the U.S. did what we did, in Europe. And I think, but we didn't join World War II out of noble intention. We did it because Japan attacked us, which is, in my opinion, a little bit shameful. Or a lot of it shameful, actually. I think it's quite shameful. The U.S. was not drawn into World War II out of some noble desire to save Europe or out of some, insight into the concentration camps or out of a desire to quell fascism, quash fascism, whatever. It was because Japan attacked us, which is shameful.
EU plus America. But then they would have, instead of an alliance, because there's no enemy anymore, now we would have the Partnership for Peace, a new security architecture, and Russia, the Russian Federation, and Ukraine would be members of it. And then that way, Ukraine's neutrality as a obviously extremely important country locked between European, civilization and Russia there, the controversy will be settled with a pseudo, like a de facto.
We turned away the St. Louis and sent the Jews back on that ship. Yeah, a few ships with Jewish people got turned back. They were pretty ass-pained about that. It's one of the things they took out on the Palestinians and the British. Yeah, because there were sometimes ships would be leaving. That was very bad timing for the for Palestine and Israel. There's a lot of I'm laughing. It's not funny. Fuck. Yeah, but a lot of Jews that were trying to flee Europe or flee the concentration camps or whatever, like the British, like, sorry, Palestine's closed. Too many of you fuckers have came in, like, go back and get killed. And, like, yeah.
And Russia there the controversy will be settled with a pseudo, like a de facto permanent neutrality there. And then what happened was the Hawks won the argument. And then as all of the graybeards said at the time, oh no, you see what we're doing? We're just redrawing the line. The policy has gone from containment to friends to neo-containment. This is before W. Bush ever even came to town.
Okay, well, let me put that point then.
What did he even say that rebuted us? I wish the debates were more formal. None of this was responsive to, any of the points that this guy brought out. This is such a waste conversation. And then now he's kind of whatever.
To someone who, by the way, for the record, does not have a grey beard, General Clark. Would you like to respond to what you just heard?
It's actually, you're right. We had a multiple.
People are saying that FDR's aggressive stance towards Europe is what is part of a contributing factor that forced Japan to attack us in the Pacific. So maybe America gets more credit.
Multiplicity of interests with Russia at the time the Clinton administration came in. And the first interest was to control the nuclear weapons that were in Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and the loose nukes argument took priority. And we got legislation passed, the Nunn-Lugar Agreement amendment. Basically, we put billions of dollars.
Now some people are saying, no, not true. I don't know enough to side with either side, so. But America was apparently hard embargoing oil on Japan, and FDR was taking political hits for it, or whatever. Okay, I don't know. I haven't studied it a lot. I don't know. At Destiny, are you saying that we send our troops on the ground? America sent millions in the form of aid and arms. We were in support of the Allies, but didn't join until Japan attacked. Are you talking about Ukraine, or are you talking about World War II?
And we got legislation passed, the Nunn-Lugar Agreement amendment. Basically, we put billions of dollars into helping control the former Soviets' nuclear arsenal. And as part of that, we assured Ukraine that when they gave up their nuclear weapons, and Russia signed on to this, that their boundaries would be respected. You see, in 1991, Ukraine had already voted in favor of independence. The people in Ukraine never wanted to be under Russian control. It's a separate culture. It's a different language. If you look up, and I don't know if you speak Russian, but apparently you don't, but I do. And I thought, well, I'll just go, brush up on my Russian and be able to speak Ukrainian. It's a different language, and it's a different culture. It's a different history. Ukraine's been independent in the past, and it was one of the first subjects of Russia's imperial ambitions going back to Catherine the Great. And the way that it operates is it's not a nice colonialism. It's an ugly colonialism in which Russia says, I'm in charge here. I want a part of your business. And they buy people and they influence. And I've met many Ukrainian leaders over the years, including some who've made billions of dollars off their associations with Russia. So when the United States looked at this in the early 1990s, we were hopeful that there would actually be democratic reform in Russia. But it didn't happen. And as Bill Clinton traveled abroad in 1993, and in 1994, and he looked at it himself and talked to these East European leaders who were emerging. They begged Clinton to give us the protection of NATO. And so that weekend that you're referring to when Al Gore made the speech that Richard Holbrooke wrote in Berlin, and yes, I checked with my bosses in the Pentagon and said, no, of course we're not in charge. We don't want NATO enlarged. We got enough problems. Don't bring any other issues. Partnership for Peace had already been established. Russia was a member of it. And I said to my boss, I said, they keep putting this thing in here about enlarging NATO. And I keep scratching it out, and it keeps coming back in. And sure enough, Vice President Gore gave that speech, and he gave it at the direction of the President of the United States because President Clinton himself, in going through Eastern Europe, had looked and listened to the leadership there.
I mean, do you think we should send troops now? With your comparison in the past, it feels like you're implying we should send troops on the ground because we didn't send them soon enough in the past. What do we do now? I don't know. It's clusterfuck now, but it should have been a stronger response in the very beginning. I still think now, like if Ukraine wants to fight, I think that the answer should be, okay, well, you know what? Here's everything you need. Let us know what you need. Do whatever you want with it, and good luck. Save for like nuclear weapons, at the very least. So then if they lose at this point, at least it's because we gave them everything. At least at this point, although that should have happened 2 years ago, if not 10 years ago, in 2014. But
he knew the history. He knew foreign relations. He knew foreign policy, and he determined that the best avenue for peace forward was to both provide security for Eastern Europe through opportunities for NATO membership if they wanted it, and work with Russia and give Russia a special relationship with NATO. So we formed the NATO-Russia Council. The NATO-Russia Council had all the members of NATO listening to Russia and all of its concerns in 1997, 1998, 1999. I was there sitting in that council when former Russian Foreign Minister Yevgeny Primakov gave us a lecture. Russia has no permanent friends. Russia has only permanent interests. And he's looking at me, and I know who he was. He's the guy who basically started the Palestinian terrorist organizations as a KGB agent. And he knew who I was. Russia has no permanent in that council when in 1997, 1998, 1999. I was there sitting in that council when former Russian Foreign Minister Yevgeny Primakov gave us a lecture. Russia has no permanent friends. Russia has only permanent interests. And he's looking at me, and I know who he was. He's the guy who basically started the Palestinian terrorist organizations as a KGB agent. And he knew who I was, and we knew each other. And I knew what he was saying. He was saying that Russia didn't appreciate NATO, wouldn't cooperate with NATO, and was going to go its own way. He later ran for president, lost it to Vladimir Putin. But the point is that the United States worked assiduously to try to bring stability to Eastern Europe, including working with Russia. And it was Russia that really didn't want this. From the beginning, we actually had hopes that Russia might join NATO. But from the beginning of Putin's time, he crushed democracy, crushed dissent, and step-by-step consolidated power using the mafia, the Russian mafia, and the intelligence agencies. And so we are in the position where we are today. I've always wished I could talk to Putin and say, look, it's not that we disrespect you. We like Russia. We love Russian music, culture, your history. There's so many great things that have come out of Russia. But you can't step on other people. You can't treat people that way. You can't invade other countries. We're not going to invade you. There's no threat here. I was with the Russian foreign minister when we were dealing with the Conventional Foreign Forces in Europe Treaty in 1998. And Minister Ivanov said, well, under this treaty, in a time of tension, NATO could put a division in Slovakia on the borders of Russia or Belarus. And I said, Mr. Minister, one NATO division on the borders of Belarus is a threat to Russia? Come on now. Ivanov laughed. He knew it wasn't a threat.
Yeah.
He knew it. Yeah. And so, you just, I'm not accusing anybody of reading and repeating what Russia's telling you to say.
Please donate towards Ukraine. The website is called United24. We can all help, even if governments don't. Could you please promote this? I don't know anything about that donation thing. I don't know anything about that website, so.
Saying there's a lot of misinformation out here.
Yeah.
But we are where we are. And the only way.
Well, can I ask just one short follow-up there, Piers?
Very, very quickly. We have to wrap, but very quickly, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. They didn't even get to argue with each other.
Very briefly, I wonder, General Clark, if you're aware that your then boss, William Perry, he later told The Guardian that it was the greatest regret of his life that he did not do every single thing he could to stop Clinton from going down the path of NATO expansion.
Well, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. Here's what I'll do, Scott. I'll just ask General Clark, and please be brief if you don't mind, General Clark, but was Clinton right or wrong, looking with hindsight?
Well, I think Clinton was right in hindsight. Because when you unravel what actually happened with the dissolution of the Soviet Union, and I have the greatest respect for Dr. Perry, but the KGB, there's a book written on this called Putin's People, and you can read it. But basically, the KGB saw it collapsing in the late 1980s. They didn't trust Gorbachev. They moved the money to the West. When democracy started, most of the people in the political parties in Russia were former intelligence agents. They'd been schooled in how to campaign. They formed different political parties to make it appear as though there were different parties. But in reality, they were anxious to regain power. And so we never really followed through with the opportunity that the dissolution of the Soviet Union presented to us.
Right.
I mean, we could have sent democracy trainers into the Soviet Union. We didn't. We had the National Endowment for Democracy. It was just scratching the surface. We never really reached out to the Russian people. It's a different culture. They don't understand it. They're isolated. And just like the American people don't understand foreign policy, neither do the Russian people. A UN diplomat told me once, he said, you Americans are like the Russians. Most of your people don't even have passports. You live far from national borders. You don't have any appreciation for other nationalities. We could have extended a stronger hand in friendship. And I'm talking not Clinton. I'm talking about George H. Bush when it happened.
Yeah.
We just didn't do it. And we had a very brief window to make a great difference. We didn't. I think that the protection we provided through NATO membership for the countries of Eastern Europe and that we want to extend to Ukraine has been really important. If you look, I drove a couple of times from Eastern Poland into Ukraine. In Eastern Poland, the houses are painted, the fields are cultivated, everything looks good. As soon as you go across that border, the difference in prosperity is marked. And it's marked because Ukraine hasn't had the protection of the European Union and NATO. And that's why the people in 2014, 2013 in Maidan, they saw this. Ukraine and Poland were economically similar in the 1980s. But by 2014, Poland's GDP per capita was 2 or 3 times what it was in Ukraine, simply because Poland had the association with the West with its security provided by NATO. So we've got to get through what is more than a bump in a road. It's a critical period in international policy where we're going to decide whether the rule of law prevails or we're going to go back to the 19th century competition between empires and emperors and to hell with the people underneath. And that's where we are.
I've got to leave it there. I don't want to, actually. I could honestly do another 2 or 3 hours of this. It has been an absolutely fascinating conversation with all of you. I really appreciate you all joining me. I've got to leave it there reluctantly, but thank you very much indeed.
Well, hey, thanks, everybody.
Piers, nice to be with you.
Thank you, General.
Okay. Well, that was...
Before we go, a quick look at what on earth has gone on in South Korea over the past 48 hours is the American political analyst on inter-Korean affairs, Robert Kelly. Robert, thanks so much for joining me. What the hell is going on in South Korea? Explain to a layman what the reality is about this extraordinary development in the last 24 hours.
Do you see why Hassan hates Poland now? Tankies hate any Eastern European country that doesn't suck off the Soviet Union. They hate them all so much.
It looks like the president tried to declare martial law over fairly...
Look at the comments. They're all going to be Russian simps, guaranteed. The ignorant are still making out this conflict started in 2022 when it started in 2014. Piers says, oh, nice. Okay. Bring Scott and General back. Have a one-on-one debate. Okay. Clark admits that Russia wanted to join NATO but was rejected. He claims it was because of corruption, yet he himself has been an eyewitness to far greater corruption in his own country, including his own superiors telling him that they were going to invade 5 countries. He should also know the corruption between Americans and the Ukraine, and that the Ukraine is called the most corrupt country in Europe. The guy's selective memory, the Ukraine. Welcome, comrade. True.